Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes. We are with Liberty Lass, our level 11 Brute, who is Energy Melee Willpower, and I'm going to talk about those power sets in this episode, as well as talk a little bit about slotting of our powers, because I got some information in one of the comments and somebody made another comment that I wanted to talk about. But before we do that, let's go ahead and call our contact and just get the next mission. And fortunately, that is in Atlas Park. I didn't know it was going to be in Atlas Park. I didn't predict that at all. I left Steel Canyon because when I started trying to record and I was showing this little thing, there was this weird seeming glitch where the character started shaking and stuttering. I didn't know what was going on. And when I got back into the regular view, the whole screen was shaking because there's some invasion going on in Atlas Park and in Steel Canyon, and it's doing a screen shake. I hate screen shake. Um, so, this was just taking the note to the city representative. Anyway, I came out of Steel Canyon and came to Atlas Park just because I figured there wouldn't be any screen shaking going on in this zone. Okay, so we got to talk to the city rep, and we'll get our mission, and then we will, as we head there, I'll talk a little bit about slotting and a little bit about the power sets that I have. So we're going to go to Skyway City. There is, I don't know if the pay-to-win vendor has it. Let's go check. I believe there is I know there is on Rebirth, I believe there is a little power that allows you to teleport straight to the mission. So let's see. Travel. No. Prestige powers. Travel. Teleport to any city zone. No. Let's see. This one. Base transporter. Supergroup portal. Mission teleporter. That's it there. You need 1,000,000 influence for that one. Okay. So we'll put that on our list at some point. When we have 1,000,000 influence, we will grab that. In case we're heading to Skyway City, where we are going to defeat the Clockworks. Before we get there, let me talk about slotting. So somebody, gosh, I apologize, I don't remember who it was, did confirm that on the Homecoming server they don't give you any extra slots the way they do on Rebirth for health and stamina as you level up. So that means we've got to add 2 slots to health and 2 to stamina as we level up. So I will probably do those at level like 13 and 15 for health, and then like 19 and 21 or something for stamina. We don't need them until level 22, but I do want to get them done. Because then the first thing that happens is I forget about them, and then then it's like level 25 before I get them straightened out. Do we want to do that one? Nah, we don't want to do that one, because we want to put resistance in there. Alright, so that's the first one I wanted to talk about. And then what I really want to focus on in this episode is the willpower set and power sets in general. So somebody asked, and again I apologize, I don't remember who it was, but somebody asked in one of the early videos, noted that I have the willpower set and said that the willpower set is something that everybody seems to use. Like I guess all the melee characters in all the Let's Plays that are out, they're always doing willpower. And what this person asked is it really that good? Do you really have to do willpower or be, ineffective, nerfed, whatever? And the answer is no. That's not why I picked willpower. I chose willpower for 2 reasons. One is it fit the concept of the character that I originally had. Liberty Lass's powers are based essentially on her belief in her own invulnerability, so willpower is a really good concept for her. The last time I played her on Homecoming, I made her invulnerability because that's what I created her as in the original game. So if we go back to the origin of Liberty Lass, when I first created her, I really liked the various Stars and Stripes options that you could create, and I'm a huge, kind of Captain America fan and a big Supergirl fan, and I kind of envisioned her as sort of a hybrid of Captain America and Supergirl, right? She kind of has Supergirl's powers and look, and Captain America's patriotism. And so she originally had super strength and invulnerability, and so she was basically and she was super strong and invulnerable because of her own belief in her unalienable rights as enumerated in the Declaration of Independence, right? The right to life, so you can't kill her. The right to liberty, so you can't entrap her, right, or entangle her. And thus, her mez defense, her right to liberty, her invulnerability and invincibility and everything, her right to life, you can't kill her. And so that superhuman belief in her own inability to be defeated like that was what made her powerful. And there was no willpower power set at the time, so the thing that made the most sense was invulnerability, right? And super strength, made a lot of sense too. And I leveled her up to level 19 during the first month or so of live in 2004. And by the way, she had pretty much this look. She did not have a skirt because they didn't have skirts at the time, so she had shorts. She had a blue top with a red skirt, red gloves, and boots. And she had definitely this star pattern. There were no capes, and she had a slightly different set of goggles because these wraps didn't exist yet. So she had the thing that looks more like the safety goggles when you're working in a lab. And but I colored them red, white, everything red, white, and blue. And she used to, say "for freedom," like can't remember what his name is in the Freedom Force game, Minuteman. And so, because that game had just come out a year or two earlier, and I'd really liked it. So that's how she got her start, and then she got to level 19, and I hated super strength. It just feels so anemic, and especially back then it was horrible. They've improved it since, but it was just so slow and so boring, and it had such poor animations compared to all the other good animations they have in the game. And you would do this huge wind up and punch, and you would just do this huge wind up to do a gut punch, and the enemies would barely cringe, and it wouldn't do any damage, and so it just made you feel so weak that you're doing this huge wind up, and then you do nothing to them. So I didn't like it. And one of the problems, as I learned on the forum then at that point, was that almost all enemies, except maybe Clockworks, have resistance to smashing damage, which is what super strength is. And so what people suggested as a tank is don't get smashing damage, get something like fire, because very few enemies have resistance to fire. So reluctantly, I deleted the Liberty Last character, the original one, and immediately, before anybody could steal my name, went into the server and made up a new character called Liberty Lass, and I had to do it very quickly because in those days you couldn't reserve the name by typing it in and clicking the little check mark in character creation. And so I had to remember how to do her costume and everything and try to get it right. I think I did. And she and what I gave her was fire, and I said she was using the Flame of Freedom, so she was a fire invulnerability tanker. And then I had to level her back up. And when I got her into the mid-20s, they brought out capes, and my best friend, who I still play D&D with and Deadlands and stuff, he said to me, "Oh man," he did the cape mission before I did, because it was one of these things where he took the day off of work when they put the update out, and I didn't. So he had already done the cape mission before I logged in, and he messaged me and said, "You should totally get a cape for Liberty Lass. It absolutely fits her, and there are some really cool stars and stripes options like this on the cape that suit her." And so I went in and I did the mission, and this is when they put out new costumes too, and then I changed her costume to the red top with the blue bottom, and so her first caped version was this one. And then eventually I used a red cape on the blue top version, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it's making sense. And so that's the origin. We've over aggroed. That's the origin of Liberty Lass, right? That's where the character concept comes from. I played that character to about level 43, and then I kind of stopped playing City of Heroes. I played it on and off, but I stopped for a long time. And when I went back, my best friend was still playing the game, but most of my supergroup had vanished, and he had moved from the Justice server to the Virtue server because that was the unofficial role-playing server, and he had needed to find a new group of role players, since except for one or two other people, most of our guild had kind of stopped playing. It was years after launch, right? This is like 3-4 years after launch. So I went to the Virtue server, but I had to start over, and so I did not, the Liberty last name wasn't available. So I just left her at level 43 on the other server, saying, "Oh, someday I'll go back to it and finish her up." But I never did, and so I've never completed Liberty Lass as a character. When City of Heroes came back on Homecoming, I made Liberty Lass up, and I have videos about her as a tanker, and I did a Super Strength Invulnerable, and which is her original. I said, I'm just gonna, Super Strength has gotten a little better. I've gotten, I know more about the game, and I'm just gonna, grit my teeth and bear it and get through the lower levels, because when you get to the higher levels, um, you when you get to the higher levels, you can get some buffs like rage or whatever it's called that increases your damage and your two hit and stuff, and it's sort of like build up, and you can actually do some decent damage with it. But again, I only got to about level 25 with it. I just don't like the way Super Strength plays in this game, and I hate that I don't like it, because Super Strength is one of my favorite types of powers for a character to have. A lot of, I played superheroes and champions several times. Their main power was just strength, and I like playing bricks, as they call them, right? The flying brick, this character, the strong, invulnerable flying character, is something I really like. So Liberty Last got to level 25 or so, and then I stopped playing Homecoming, and I switched. Uh, and so Liberty Last has never been a willpower character. In the meantime, of course, during the live game, the willpower um, they put the willpower set in the game, and that was when I was playing on the Virtue server, and I had created a tank character and leveled her to 50, Fire Ice, named Comet Flare. And then I wanted another character, so I created, I believe, a Scrapper, who was named Grenja. It was actually supposed to be like Grendel's little sister, and she was atoning for all the evils of Grendel and his mother and their evil family. So she was this immortal who'd been living for 1,000 years or whatever, and so they had just put out both dual blades and willpower, and I made her a dual blades willpower scrapper because I like scrappers, and these were new powers, and I wanted to try them. And that's the first time I ever used willpower. Um, I didn't get that character to level 50 because my supergroup sort of faded away again, and I stopped playing City of Heroes. And so I really haven't done a bunch of willpower. I did do Impulse Storm, I think, had willpower, but I didn't level her to 50 either. That's from the cutting room floor, those rants. So I'll continue with the story and why I picked willpower here, but I just want to say, like, I don't pick powers for uberness or for min-maxing. I pick them because I feel like they fit the character or for reasons like that. Alright, let's train up to our next level. We need another power. We can get fast healing. Oh my gosh, I want all of this. I want build up, I want fast healing, I want whirling hands, which is an AoE. Right? Is it not? Yeah. We need an AoE. We need all of it. But my rule is even distribution. So now we're going to get another passive power, which I like. And it's not as it's not as endurance heavy. So we're going to have to get some enhancements now. We're 12th level. We have, let's take a look, 92,000 influence. So that should be enough to buy some DOs. We take a look at their power, their cost, about 5,000 each. So we can buy about a dozen of them, which is probably enough. So what I'm going to do is pause the video here. I'll buy all of my dual origins, and then I'll show you how I slotted it out and explain it to you. All right, folks, we are back. I've spent about half the money. I have 50,000 influence. I did not fill every slot because it would be too expensive, and it's not worth it. We're going to level up very quickly. So I always go double accuracy enhancements because I hate to miss. So when not, I don't necessarily go double on single origins, but for dual origins I do. This gives us about 38% increase, so 1.38%, 1.38x accuracy on our powers. That's 38% to our 2-hit chance. And then I've got 2 endurance reducers just so that the toggles don't cause us any trouble. They haven't been so far. Just want to make sure that that continues. So we're all slotted out, and we go ahead and call our contact for our next mission. And we're going to check out Lou's shop, and I think this is where we rescue his wife and daughter. So, let's continue the story. I created Liberty Lass here, but before I did that, I had already used Energy Aura. This is important. I used Energy Aura as a defense for my other brute, Quintessence Lass. And I don't like using the same power sets over and over and over again. I prefer to try different ones. And so when I was making this character, I decided to go Energy Melee because Super Strength had been so frustrating to me. And I've always wanted to do Energy Melee. And so I decided to do a brute. I'll do Energy Melee, right? And then I thought, okay, what's her defensive power going to be? And my reflex was invuln, but again, I've done that so many times already, 3 times already on Liberty Lass, without ever getting her to level 50. I know invulnerability like the back of my hand, but I don't know willpower as well. So I said, well, why don't I get willpower? The other option would have been Energy Aura, which fits with Energy Melee, and I considered that. The problem with that is I already did Energy Aura to level 50 with my Dark Melee Energy Aura Brute Quintessence Lass, and I didn't want to repeat it. I mean, I figured you guys have seen me do that already. If you want to know how I slot Energy Aura, go watch those. But you haven't seen me do willpower like this from level 1 to 50, so I thought that might be informative. So that's why I picked willpower. I had absolutely no idea that everybody uses willpower or that it is the flavor of the month or flavor of the year or whatever it is. I had no idea that that was true. Yeah, I'm not doing it to try and be uber. Now the other question was, or the part of the question was, do you need to do this to have willpower? No, you don't. I have leveled regen, super reflexes, energy aura. What else to level 50? You don't have to have willpower. It's a perfectly fine serviceable set, but lots of the others are also perfectly fine and serviceable, and there's no reason why you can't do invulnerability, super reflexes, energy, aura, electrical. What are the other ones? There's some sort of a bio armor that I've never done that's supposed to be really cool. You know, there are tons of these, and all of them are viable. Pick the power set that's going to be fun for you. Either pick it for the concept of the character, or pick it because you like to play it. It has features that you like. I really love super reflexes. It has features that I like. And by the way, I also like the visual and sound effects and everything. Just the whole set is awesome. But also, I have a lot of nostalgia for it because it's the first defense set I ever played with my martial arts super reflex scrapper. One of the things that people often try to do is they try to create characters whose primary and secondary power sets synergize really well. So for example, super reflexes actually synergizes extremely well with dark melee, and the reason it does is that super reflexes is a dodge based, defense based set, and as a consequence the set is making enemies miss, and dark melee debuffs their to hit. So you're stacking it. It's a 10% increased chance to miss because of the reflexes, and a 10% reduced chance to hit because of the dark melee, and they're at basically minus 20% to hit you. And so if you enhance properly, you can basically floor, as they call it. You can get their 2-hit to the minimum chance, which is 5%, and you can floor the enemies pretty consistently with a combo of super reflexes and dark melee. Now, I knew that when I used Energy Aura instead. I think Energy Aura also, though, is largely a defense set. So is Ice. So any defense set that makes them miss combines really well with an offense set that debuffs their 2-hit. So Dark Melee works really well with anything that makes you miss. Ice and Super Reflexes being the two that come immediately to mind to me. On the other hand, you know, a power set that's more resistance based isn't going to stack as well with something like Dark Melee. And you might want to see if you can get an attack type that, say, debuffs their damage. I don't even know if there is one that does that. But that's what people try to do sometimes, is just find two power sets that complement each other or stack with each other. I personally actually prefer most of the time to take power sets that do different things, because I prefer to be more of an all-round, like a rounded character, like an all-rounder, rather than being a specialist. And there's a reason why if anybody watched my AO Tennis 2 tennis matches, I was playing an all-quarter. I don't like to over-specialize. I feel like you're not as great at the one thing, but you're better in more circumstances when you don't hyper-specialize. Right? If you ever end up with somebody who's not vulnerable to missing you or is using something against you that doesn't have to hit, then all of that specialization in making the enemy miss isn't going to do you any good. So I personally prefer to be a little more rounded. So I've done things like Claws Regen, right? They don't stack at all. But I had a Claws Regen Scrapper that, I did on a Rebirth, and I recorded it all the way to level 50. My Claws Regen Scrapper was great. And by the way, that Scrapper, I didn't use any enhancement sets. All I did was single Origin once we were at level 22. And I got her all the way to level 50. She hardly ever died. And she was doing missions at +2 or +3 in the 40s, right? It's not like if you don't do the Uber stuff, you're not going to be able to survive. Not only will you survive, but you can thrive. So I recommend playing the sets you like, or the sets that synergize with other sets, or playing the sets that conceptually work for your character, or just have mechanics that you enjoy, right? Like, for instance, some people really like masterminds, so play a mastermind. Don't worry if it's Uber. Now, there is a caveat to that, and that is that, there can be build snobs in the game, and some of them are out there looking for groups, and it's always possible that you could end up finding somebody to try and play with who's going to negatively judge your build and maybe even not want you in their group because you didn't build your character the Uber way. You have a secondary other than willpower, kick, and they knock you out of the group. I submit that unless you are like that yourself, these are not people you want to play with, right? If you enjoy playing Fire Ice and somebody's going to kick you out of the group simply because you picked Fire Ice, don't play with that person. Play with people who are going to be good friends and who are going to let you play whatever you want, because you have a right to play whatever you want. Oh, can't go in there. Okay. Gotta go this way. So to sum up, no, you don't need to be willpower or any other power set. You can pick whatever set you want and play it however you want. You can slot it however you want. You'll be fine by any estimation in playing the game, and you will have no issues. But there are build snobs, and there are people who may judge you negatively for doing what you like instead of what is, popular and flavor of the month to do. And, it's up to you whether you want to play with those people. If you do, then you may have to bow to their quote-unquote wisdom and build your character their way. So let me give you an example. And again, I think I actually had this in the Silver Phoenix where I talked about it, but on my super group, which was they were a good, cool group. This is my second super group. After I left the first one, I joined the second one. They were really nice people. for the most part. I got along with them very well. But the leader and the second in command and a couple of the others were very, very hardcore endgame players, right? Their goal was to do all of the incarnate trials. These are the post level 50, like sort of endgame raids, if you will. This game's version of raids. And they are very tough, apparently. I've never played them. And in order to do them, you have to really be apparently very well specced out. And so she posted a series of rules for the guild saying that if you want to join us in endgame rating, you must. Now, I will say, even though she was like that, she never said what power set you have to have or what archetype you had to be. But what she said was, you must have this, like a minimum of this amount of resistance when all of your enhancement sets are added up, or you're going to die, and we can't save you. So if you don't have at least, and I don't know what the percentage is, let's say 25% resistance, you can't join us. And we're going to inspect your character and make sure you have that before we let you on the team. You have to have voice chat, she said. This stuff, what I'm doing right now. You have to have audio. We just completed the story arc. Because it apparently the campaign is on, the trials are on such a hair trigger in terms of, it's so quick and easy to die that there's no time to type commands in or any of that. You're going to have to use voice so that we can coordinate and be quick, right? And then she said, to start the incarnate trials, you have to have, all level 50 purple or whatever they are sets on every power that's reasonable to have them. And then she said, once we start the trials, right, you've got to have these abilities. So the first one, you've got to at least have your alpha slotted to the bottom level. And there are there's like a whole tree of them. And then she said, then you've got to have like these guys slotted for the next trial, and these guys slotted for the next trial, and this one slotted for the next trial, and so on and so forth. And so she, listed out exactly what you have to have, and they wouldn't let you come if you didn't have that stuff. This is a roleplay guild, guys, and it's a guild that doesn't specialize in raiding. So if you're with a guild that does specialize in raiding, they're going to be even stricter and have more requirements. And so, if that's what you want to do, then yeah, you might have to play willpower. But if you're just playing with a group of friends as a fun group, or just people that you meet randomly and you just want to play for fun, it shouldn't matter what power set you have. It shouldn't matter which powers within the power set you picked. And it shouldn't matter how many enhancements and what kind of enhancements you have. Nothing really needs that in this game, right? It's other than incarnate trials, really, if somebody thinks they like that you have to be a willpower tanker, I would say, yeah, I don't agree with that, and I've seen lots of cases where the min-maxers don't do as well as the people who just play normally. And the best example I have of that is that in that guild, all of the Uber people we were supposed to do a role play night, and we were doing the level 50 content in Dark Astoria. And I've told this part of this story before where in that story arc, you actually have to break a bad guy out of prison and fight Blue Steel, which is the guy who levels you up in King's Row. And I said my character wouldn't do that. And so what they did was they left me out of the first mission, and then the rest of the missions were fighting bad guys, so then I was able to join them. This is Silver Phoenix. She is a martial arts super reflex scrapper. Both martial arts and super reflex are considered weak sets for their primaries and secondaries. All right? Let me talk to our contact, and then we'll see what we've got. And she's probably all done with missions for us now, so let's see. Lorenzo da Costa is right here, and so he can give us some missions. So I'm playing already a weak character, and my character had sets, but no incarnate abilities and nothing really super. And so I joined this group, Everybody else was like well above 50 in the sense that you stop at 50, but they had veteran levels and they had a bunch of their incarnate stuff in. And they're the people who do all the billion, $2 billion sets, and they're super uber great, and their buffs up here are way better than mine. And we went into these missions, and I got to tell you guys, I don't know what they were doing, but I was the only one who didn't repeatedly faceplant. I didn't die once. Those guys faceplanted over and over again. The leader of the group, who was supposedly this great builder who could make her mastermind have better resistance and defense than my scrapper, yeah, she faceplanted 3 or 4 times in a single mission and kept having to come back. Okay, now I'm not trying to like criticize her gameplay. What I'm saying is having all that uberness doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do any better than somebody who doesn't. A lot of it has to do with managing aggro, managing the way you play the game, spatial awareness, situational awareness of what's going on in the mission and in the encounter and that sort of thing. And I'm going to say this. I think that a lot of players who play the power leveling way now, I think a lot of them don't practice good City of Heroes gameplay because they don't have to. When you're that powerful, it can make you sloppy. And then when you get into stuff like Incarnate Trials where it's really tough, you're not playing the sort of accurate type of game that you would play if you didn't have all of that extra buffing from the incarnate abilities, right? I mean, there are people who literally will level to 50 in the architect by multi-boxing, right? They'll have their level up character, right? Remember I said last time or a couple times ago, there's a level up character that you use to gain all the influence, and then you use the farming character to buy the materials and the stuff for the real character, right? So you put your farming character in there. Your farming character is high level. You multi-box with second account, right? And you log in or whatever with a second computer. I don't know how you do it. You log in the real character, and he's level 1 to begin with, and you have him sit in the mission entrance, right, where we first enter the mission, and do nothing while your what is it, Spine's Fire leveler character, your farmer character, sweeps the mission super fast, right? And you just level the that character up, and so now in the end you have a level 50 character you've never played with all of these uber enhancements, and like, how can you have gotten good at playing that character? I mean, maybe some people just can, but for me, the gradual addition of powers and the gradual sort of development of my playstyle with the character is much more helpful to me, so that by the time I'm 50, by the time I'm level 50, I've got so much experience playing this character. And I think that a lot of players either don't have experience with the character, or their characters are so rich that they've so overbought the enhancements even from low level that they've had this huge margin of error. And then when you enter a situation where there isn't a margin of error, you just don't have the patience, and also the, I don't know what to call it, the accuracy. I'm not talking about ability to hit, but the sort of accurate ability to accurately assess the threat and who to attack first and when to use your inspirations, right? By soloing these missions on level, playing the game the way it was originally designed to be played, I feel like I get a really good feel for the character. And I think that if I had too many powerful inspirations on this character so that I'm already fighting +4s, I don't think it can help but make you a little bit kind of lackadaisical, a little relaxed. You're not used to playing with such tight tolerances, and when the tolerances get tight, you're just not ready for it. And I think that's probably why all the other members of that supergroup repeatedly face planted. And I remember I got onto it and I thought, oh man, are they going to like be angry at me because I'm not doing enough DPS? Am I going to feel like I hadn't really played with those guys in missions and stuff? And I don't know. I know I don't build the way they do, and I think my character had some, like, just the invention trainers and stuff for the most part, and only a couple of sets. I'm like, are they going to think I'm some noob who doesn't know how to play City of Heroes? And it turned out that I was the only one who didn't faceplant. And I was several times I just sat there and waited for all the rest of them to come back, and I don't know if they noticed it. But I was like, okay, they all died, and I was by myself against 3 or 4 purples, and I just, I when I saw this happening, I started saving elude, and I would just pop elude, and defeat those guys, and then by the time elude had ended and the endurance crash had happened, and I got my endurance back, they were back, and then we would go on to the next spawn or the next set of spawns, and so yeah, when I saw that happening, I was like, okay, at least I don't have to worry about whether they're going to think I'm a noob because, they're dying way more than I am. Right? They face planted over and over again. And so my point is that whether it's quote unquote the best power set or whether you've quote unquote specced out your character correctly doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of your ability to play your character well. Because those guys were arguably playing much worse than I was because they kept repeatedly getting slammed and I didn't. Now, some of that's the super reflex set. Right? The huge advantage of the defense sets is they make everything miss, including mezzes. And I think what was happening is some of these guys were getting locked down through their mez defense because the enemies were stacking the mez because there were so many of them, and they didn't really stack successfully on me because they weren't hitting me, and so they were only hitting me with like 1 or 2 things, and as a result, that wasn't enough to overcome my hold protection, which by then was like 9, right? They'd have to hit me 3 times in a row. Well, they couldn't quite do that because of my defenses, right? So, so yeah, I would say, guys, do what you want, slot how you want, put in the enhancements you want. You want to do sets, do them. If you don't have to. Like I said, you can go to level 50 fighting +2s and 3s with just single origin, and I proved it with my claws regen stalker. You can do that with other characters. It doesn't just have to be a stalker. You can just do normal sets without any incarnate abilities or anything like that and do +3s. I proved it with both Silver Phoenix and Quintessence Lass. Oh, and by the way, also with the Mastermind, Nightmare Lass, right? So I'm not telling you to go watch those, but what I am saying is if I could get all those characters solo to level 50 playing against +3s in all the story arc missions and flashback missions and everything else in the game, so can you, right? So it depends on what content you want. If you want to get into Incarnate Trials, you're going to need large groups, and you're going to have to ask the groups what are your requirements, and you're going to have to do that. But if you just want to play your missions and story arcs and enjoy the game, you can do that with any power set and any enhancements you want. Okay, so let's see what's going on. We have 2 slots available. Let us go ahead and grab 1 in health and 1 in fast healing for now. And then next time I will grab 1 in health and 1 in one of the offensive powers. So let's see, how long have we been going here? This is more than long enough. It's been 38 minutes. We have completed a story arc. We are level 13, and we will be... I'll go to Lorenzo and talk to him off screen. And when I bring you guys back, we will do our level 13 missions with Lorenzo da Costa. And until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.